This session is really intended to be a review of the whole day. We've heard a lot of claims, a lot of projections. I mean, this panel had some very sort of sci-fi scenarios. And what do we really think is going to happen? What is going to happen over the next 18 months, 24 months? Looks like we lost Jeremy's name here, but that's okay.
I'm the mystery guy from Razorfish.
Okay. These folks up here represent different kind of segments of the ecosystem. We've got a vendor, we've got a publisher ad network, we've got an investor, and we've got an agency. And so they have diverse perspectives and diverse experiences around location and marketing and presumably around the indoor stuff. And so I'm going to fire a bunch of questions at them, get them to respond, true, false, thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm also going to ask them to reflect and react to what they've heard today. And so before we get into that, each person introduce yourself, your company if it needs an introduction, what do you do, who are you, and so on and so forth.
All right.
I wish we had alcohol up here right now.
Imagine you put animals, robots, and compasses of smartphones in a blender, and what you end up with is IndoorAtlas. Animals, for millions of years, animals have been using distortions of the Earth's magnetic field to go back to birth grounds, to hunt, to crowd the ocean floors. That was an inspiration to our founder. He started playing around with robots in his lab, and he programmed them to ride to the true north. He had a couple of little robots there. He set them off, and what happened, obviously, they didn't go straight, because there's no true north inside buildings. And what he did find was that every single robot was riding the exact same way, at exactly the right location. So he turned the whole problem around and said, if this is the distortion of the Earth's magnetic field indoors, and if it's that stable by location and by time, and with the robots he got down to 10 centimeters, he said, I'm going to build heat maps, unique fingerprints in the cloud of every indoor location in the world. And that's what he did. So the third point is that got this to the company is a couple of years later, after his seminal academic paper was written, he ended up with understanding that there are compasses in mobile phones, in smartphones, both iOS and Android, unfiltered. And they give you today 1 to 2 meters accuracy. So we're talking about a solution, no additional infrastructure needed, 1 to 2 meter accuracy, which solves many of the issues you've heard today, with an availability on iOS and Android. There you have it.
Hi, I'm Chandu. I lead engineering efforts out of London, and I told Greg that I am at a severe disadvantage because it's already 1 a.m. and I'm jet lagged.
Okay.
I'm usually on the other side of that equation, but today I'm at home in San Francisco. I'm John Gardner, managing partner at Nokia Growth Partners. We are the venture capital investing arm for Nokia. We have over $600 million under management and are part of what I like to call the new Nokia. It's a very substantial part of Nokia that will continue to operate as a global leader on the mobile technology stage. We're not part of the consumer-facing handset business that will be transitioning to Microsoft. We're very active investors in North America, Europe, Israel, India, China, and invest on a theme basis in a number of areas where we feel we've developed a substantial amount of domain expertise, both independently on our own and then also collaborating with the business units such as the HERE group that's also a sponsor here at the program today. One of the key theme areas that we've been very active in is location-based commerce. Another is digital advertising, marketing, analytics, and we've very excited about this space. This is really what we're talking about today is a confluence of those two what have heretofore been separate industries. And we feel there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, just enormous market opportunities as far as that's concerned. We've invested on that basis in a number of different companies. Verve Mobile, a New York-based company that's doing local mobile advertising. Retail Next, heard from Alexi earlier today. Rocket Fuel, which is doing applied big data analytics focused on the advertising industry. All those are similarly mining this interface at the confluence of these two industries, and really excited to be here today because I think at the end of the day, the delay in the market opportunity is really the indoor location really has the opportunity to be the key that unlocks the holy grail of really the closing the transaction loop and driving the purchase behavior from online to offline. And so again.
Okay, Jeremy, the one whose name is missing from the slide.
Yeah, Jeremy Lockhorn, VP of Emerging Media at Razorfish. If you're not familiar with Razorfish, we're one of the world's largest digital marketing and advertising agencies. Full service digital, so anything from building a full-on e-commerce website for big retailers to handling their media planning and buying in digital channels as well, and kind of everything in between and on the outskirts of that as well. So my job there is basically a scout. So I run a small team that just kind of looks forward and tries to get smart about channels like mobile and digital out of home and connected television and game consoles and all those kinds of things. And then we function as educator and consultant, for the agency and for our clients directly. And so this is clearly an area of high interest because, as everybody's been saying, it really is kind of this inflection point where, digital in general is merging with the physical world, and the phone is kind of the key to that. And we're just real excited to be part of the conversation.
Okay, so I want each of you to indicate, to the extent possible, Chandu, I know that you're totally exhausted by all of this, but to the extent possible, one thing today that surprised or impressed you, and one thing that you were very skeptical of, that you heard, that you just don't buy, don't accept. So, John, you start.
Well, I can maybe go in reverse order. I think I was surprised to hear the number of times where numerous individuals were talking about sort of the near-term opportunity being cutting somebody off as I'm pulling into a parking lot, competitors, offering an ad to try to divert the sale from one venue to another. Heavy emphasis on being able to deliver an advertisement. Again, this example wasn't used today, but just as a person's getting ready to walk into Starbucks when they were already willing to go in and buy at full price, that sort of scenario, because I think that I think a lot of the back end part of the opportunity is much more significant. A lot of the more customer relationship management opportunities are a lot more near term than that.
Okay, what surprised or impressed you?
I was super impressed with Yana's description of all the ingredients in the blender, and the elegant simplicity of the magnetic true north is the key to indoor location. So.
That's not really a real answer, though. All right, next. Somebody jump in. Now is not the time to be shy.
No, I was surprised by your question, Greg, that you said, which technology is going to be the real problem solver? Right? It's like you had this slide where you had cameras, Wi-Fi, RFID, and all these. Your question was similar to asking which transportation mode is actually going to solve the problem. Is it the bus? Is it the bicycle? Is it the airplane? Right?
So I'm naive and
I think we
stupid
all are.
even, really.
We all are. I mean, at this point, we all are. We all are trying to grok this space in our own way because we all are approaching the same problem from different perspectives. And the reality is consumer behavior changes based on the venue. And the retailers have different goals based on the verticals and what they sell, etc. And so there is no one-size-fits-all solution here. It's really going to be a combination of a bunch of things. And thankfully, all the smartphones have 16, 18 sensors that we can actually leverage. So the solution is going to be something of a mix of things. So I was surprised by how we are all trying to simplify
To focus in on one,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and the most skeptical part is when someone says, we're already there, we can feel the Minority Report. I cringe because I think there are, I'm an engineer and I get excited by things. Technology excites me. But the reality is for technology to make compelling products and create the seamless experience, it actually is a hard problem. What we are trying to solve is a very hard problem. And doing it with consumer trust is actually going to take a lot of time.
Okay, Wibe or Jeremy next. Surprised or impressed cause skepticism?
I guess I was surprised and impressed by some of the case studies in general that we saw today. Again, it's super early days, and it's just I think it's really encouraging to see guys dipping their toe in the water and seeing some good results coming out of it. The experimentation that we've done kind of shows similar sides of that, but it's fantastic to see that sort of that level of sharing, which you don't always see at these kind of conferences. I also think another thing that surprised me, and it only came up a couple of times, but I was glad to hear it, which was, and you just mentioned it as well, is focus on the consumer, right? Like, if we lose sight of the consumer, then we're going to just, we're not going to be anywhere, because they're the ones that are, at the end of the day, that are paying the bills here. So I think that's really important, and we should continue that focus. Skepticism, I guess just kind of to riff off of that last point, I think that I'm skeptical about anything that does not have a clear consumer value proposition. And I don't want to point fingers necessarily, but I think that there are lots of great technologies and different flavors of how we might do this sort of indoor targeting and delivering the right message, right time, in the right place. But again, the crucial piece is making sure that the consumer is clear on that value proposition. So I think that anything that doesn't do that is what I'm skeptical of.
Yes, I was actually surprised by your comment about half an hour ago, which was
it's not fair to
which
correct
was
this on me.
you're questioning how ready consumers are for aisle level or even sections of aisle level use cases, and taking the consumer as a center point. This is not just about push advertising. It's about simple wayfinding, for example. So I just wanted to make that point, that there's a lot more. And don't get me wrong, this is not going to take off tomorrow. It will take time. I mean, I use the example of, I was invited to Procter & Gamble, where there were probably billions of dollars of buying power in the room. This was 2001, 2002. And I was allowed to present them mobile advertising. Well, guess what? It took 10 years. And only then did they start spending a few $1 million, and it's probably now a little bit larger than that. So it will take off. My back on the where I'm skeptical is I've seen the first hype of Bluetooth. I've lived through that. I've tested that also 12 years ago. I'm seeing another one right now. I do not think Bluetooth low energy is going to scale, and we believe magnetic will be the de facto standard for indoor positioning worldwide. It doesn't mean the only one, like was referred to earlier, but look at what happened to GPS outdoors. This conference is about indoor marketing. What do you need to do indoor marketing? You need to know where you are. If there's something that Bluetooth low energy has a huge problem with, is telling you where you are. Switch on your map on your smartphone right now and look where you are. It shows you with GPS that you're in this block. With what you kick in Wi-Fi, it shows you still a blue circle half the size of this building. Now you can still install all you want, but that's not scalable. The point I want to make is magnetic will solve a huge part of that problem because it doesn't require additional infrastructure.
Okay. So to Jeremy's point, we're going to accelerate here a little bit, shorter answers, agree or disagree, and maybe a couple of words why. This whole indoor marketing and location phenomenon is really a solution in search of a problem. Agree, disagree, really briefly why. Anybody, jump in, start, speak.
Anybody else?
You don't all have to speak, just whoever's motivated.
So state the question again. I was stalling so much that I forgot the original question.
I'm really in need of a drink at this point now.
I'll step in.
Okay, so you made this point yourself, Jeremy, but you don't get to answer now because
You put it so much more
blew
eloquently
it,
than
so
I
it's
did.
John's turn.
All right, go ahead.
Solution in search of a problem. This whole phenomenon, this whole conference, it's all about a solution in search of a problem. John.
False. I think this is the key. It's all about pattern recognition. And if the difference between 3 years ago and 2 years ago and 1 year ago and today is today, if you talk with marketers at large brands and retailers, the basic question that they're asking is, I've got these myriad of tools to help me better merchandise to a visitor that comes online. Why can't you give this to me at physical retail? And to me, if the marketers are asking those questions, then that means that this is a real problem that needs to be solved. And people that have solutions are the innovators that have these kind of solutions are going to build big businesses.
Chandu.
I don't know, actually.
Say what you really think.
No, I think technologies are enablers. I get that. And I think Jules actually said this very eloquently. When I go to a store, I don't want to be unnoticed. I actually want to be served. So what I think we should probably focus on is the problem that we are solving for the consumer. Everything else, I think, is actually going to happen if we define that clearly.
Well, I think on the back office side that we heard earlier, the retail analytics side, there's a lot of value there. I think that there's clearly some information that's of value. On the consumer side, it's a vaguer proposition potentially.
It is, and simply talking about BLE and beacons and indoor positioning is actually not going to float my boat. I mean, this is where I think consumers really have to feel the value when they actually walk into a grocery store. How many of you would really entertain the idea of being interrupted by a message on your phone? And do you want to be marketed, quote unquote? And those are the kind of things I think we need to think about. If it is truly valuable to the consumer, I think then you are right that new leaders will emerge and then new industries will be created. But again, we got to start with the consumer. I think that's where.
I'd
that's
agree.
where the
One challenge I'd make is whether we're the right people to be asking that question necessarily. Are we the typical consumer?
No, exactly. We shouldn't be. I mean, this is where we get excited by the beacons. We get excited by the magnetic fields. We get excited by the technology. I think we should. Technologies are tools, but it's really the people that go to a grocery store 3 times a week. What exactly are the behaviors that they are actually used to? Then how can we enhance their experience?
So I would go back to some of the data that I showed at the very beginning. What are the 3 things that every consumer seems to do with their smartphone in a retail environment? They look for deals, coupons, they check price information, and they do product research, searching for reviews or other product data. So there does seem to be something there that the consumer is seeking out. And the retailer or the entity, whether it's a brand or retailer, can facilitate delivery of that information through the indoor smartphone experience. I think that there is some real core of consumer behavior that's already established and that is real. So I don't think, my own view is that it is not completely a solution in search of a problem, even though certain things are ahead of the game. So you want to say any more, and then Asif's got a question.
No, you are right. There is a behavior. So the shortest path to success is, can we actually harness that existing behavior and start there, instead of as soon as I walk by the aisle every time, if I am getting pinged, is that the real behavior that I want to get used to? I think that's where the balance is going to be.
Okay, Asif. He's got the mic on your yeah.
So I like what you're saying, Chandu, about focusing on the consumer, but I want to take it to the other end of the spectrum. We're actually seeing, and we have data at the LBMA that's showing the consumers getting smarter. They recognize that their data is valuable. We're actually seeing new business models emerge with startups that are enabling consumers to actually proactively put all their data into a vault, and every marketer that wants to use it pays that consumer for that privilege. The consumers are actually getting dollars for their data now.
I was surprised we didn't hear more about that today.
Yeah.
Quite
so
honestly.
doesn't that change the game completely when we start to think where the consumer understands that their data is valuable and actually wants to get paid for the privilege of marketers talking to them?
The consumer becomes a pimp and a prostitute
Absolutely.
all in one of their own data.
Yeah. So if we're just building systems that ignore that as a philosophy, then we're ignoring a huge part of this consumer understanding that their data is valuable and getting smarter.
No, it is a nice thought. I do agree with you that if you actually can clearly explain the value of this data, of consumer behavior, and how it can aid them in the back, I think it actually is helpful. But the fundamental thing is phones are very personal. And this is where I think the industry is, we need to differentiate between our desktop behavior and mobile. Phones are very personal, and as a result of that, when you try to tag on location on top of that, it's actually going to be even more sensitive. So if you tell me that I am going to push you notifications because I'm going to make it a useful marketing material, I may get turned off because I may not like the marketing in the whole pitch. But if you actually instead give me some value prop that actually saves me money or saves me time or something that I really value, that I think is actually a viable pitch. But again, consumers, back to the consumer. They need to understand the value that they're getting.
Okay, other questions? I've got a bunch of questions, but other questions? Am I seeing any? Yes? You had to be on the other side of the room. Okay.
We're talking about consumers. I think my wife's a great example of a consumer. We started doing a diet, started eating paleo, and it's really hard to find those types of products. We went to several stores. No one knew where coconut flour was. Being able to just do simple search and finding those types of products in stores that we're not used to. This was Whole Foods and Trader Joe's, and those were times that we were just leaving the store not able to find products, and there was lost revenue just for that instance. We're on the diet for 2 months and we're off, and then we go back to those stores a year later and try it again, we can't find it. So that's an example of use case without pushing ads. Just the utility of the system can be very helpful.
Okay. Agree, disagree, couple of comments. I loved Eric's talk about the brand targeting, and I loved the last panel, but let me throw this out. We are never going to see this in-aisle targeting scenario come to pass. Too much complexity with the data, with all the departments. Brands won't be able to take advantage of it. Agencies won't know how to use it. It's not going to happen. Agree, disagree, why?
Disagree. We have it up and running in our proof of concept store in Finland. Basket size went up by 9.2%. Thank you.
Disagree. I agree with you, or with you on the end there, but disagree with Greg.
No. This is merely a devil's advocate position.
Yeah, no. I get it.
Okay. All right.
It's more fun to disagree with you.
Yeah, it's more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people are
So,
piling
but
on. I don't know what's going on here.
I think my point is it's already happening, right? Like Catalina acquired a company called Motive Media that had pilots running. It wasn't on your own phone at the time, but a third-party device that you would pick up when you went into the store that was doing aisle-level targeting. So, I think that it's already happening. I think it's going to take time for all of the reasons that you sort of outlined, but we'll get there.
Okay, another.
I mean, you already go to a store and they have tiny little signs in the store that are doing in-aisle marketing, with analog versions. I mean, why if more and more people are walking around looking at their phones for lists and looking at their phones for information, why wouldn't that be something that comes to pass in digital form as well?
Okay, another question. the retailer, as was predicted in the last panel, the retailer will lose control of this, and it will be third parties who are in charge, big publishers and ad networks who are really ultimately the ones that are the channel to the consumer in store and control all the brand advertising dollars. Agree, disagree, why?
Disagree.
Okay.
I mean, I think, again, you need to think about three things here, right? There are consumers, there are brands, and there are retailers. People that lose out in these kind of ecosystems are the ones that don't add any value. If we really believe that retailers are not adding any value in that whole chain, then they will lose. But do we all agree that they are adding value? I think that's the question that we need to ask. And if they are going to stay. And the product or the technology or the ecosystem that's only going to thrive is the one that brings all three constituents together and add value on top of that.
I'd turn the question around and say, is there room for third-party players to enter in sort of the current closed system? And obviously the answer to that is yes, similar to what Chada is saying, as long as they can add value and show ROI.
Anybody else want to
Yeah, I think to the extent that aisle level targeting requires some level of hardware in the store, then the retailer is going to have to be involved in some way, shape, or form.
Okay, so questions? We're really close, mile 25 and a half. You like my marathon metaphor? That's what you feel like right now, right? Like you mentally run a marathon. No? This is the last chance before the drinking begins. Okay. Oh, here's Jeff.
I think we have to be intellectually honest and admit that any type of indoor positioning has its faults. Wi-Fi is very expensive. Beacons, you have to install them, so on and so forth. When we've tested magnetic-based indoor positioning previously, the challenge is that it was hard to scale walking around every single building to fingerprint it. And then if the metal in the building changed at all, maybe it was the display in a mall and a retail store, it threw off the calibration. How does IndoorAtlas get around that?
So my first question to you would be, what solution did you test?
Well, so just address
I can't reveal the.
Just address his last point, which is how do you deal with the potential distortion of the metal in the building?
So we own essential patents. We have 15 patents filed worldwide, and we think we have a solution on an algorithmic level that covers that we cover like a consistent noise on a background level, so we can cancel out that noise. What you do have to do, and you're absolutely right, you do need to magnetically fingerprint places, but you only need to do it once. For example, we are working with stores where we go back every season because they change the clothing racks, and as a result, the metal is changing the Earth magnetic field fingerprint, so you remap that section. But usually, we could do a room like this, we can map that in 10, 15 minutes. So it's not a huge deal. Training somebody in the store is 10, 20 minutes. So that is, and all the top retailers we've spoken to, there's a reason why they, today in the US, why they dismiss Wi-Fi, why they dismiss Bluetooth low energy. And they have so far have clearly indicated they're willing to spend the few $100,000 it takes to fingerprint all their stores. And we're talking about retailers that have thousands of stores.
Okay, good, thank you. Final question, well, penultimate question. Privacy. The indoor proximity analytics, whatever we want to call this ecosystem, will not learn the lessons of online and will make some of the same mistakes. It will be messy and kludgy and not the sort of clean experience that Jen and Jules were talking about and hoping for. It will could similarly be a very difficult and protracted problem. Agree, disagree? Quickly.
I'm somewhere in the middle. I think we'll probably see some additional mistakes along the way. But to Asif's point, I think consumers are getting really smart about the data and are figuring out ways to leverage that. And I also think that everything that every time this topic has come up, the mantra, it sounds to me, has been choice, transparency, and control, which I think is the key with any kind of privacy. And if we stick to that, it shouldn't be. I think it often gets blown out of proportion. And if we just make it that simple, choice, transparency, and control, everybody wins.
Okay, one other response on that.
I think it's similar to online. It's important. It needs to be very carefully monitored, but it's manageable, and it's not definitive in that.
Okay, final comment. Anything you want to say about anything that's not too embarrassing about you personally? So, just any comments you want to make about indoor location or marketing or any of the technologies? Anything you want to say? Final comment. So, Wibe.
Final comment. One industry level piece that has, I don't think, been not highlighted enough today is the difference between indoor positioning and geofencing, or microfencing, as some call it. One is designed to really, push ads. Mostly, that's the use case that's being highlighted, which is the geofencing. It's not optimized for showing you a blue dot. I cannot highlight it enough. It does not cover all those use cases. Positioning is a different animal, and it does cover a blue dot, and it's very usable like GPS outdoors. Thank you.
Okay, Chandu.
Yep, I think this is a pretty big opportunity. My biggest fear is that if we are not thoughtful in growing this ecosystem, and specifically along the lines of disintermediating somebody, whether it's a retailer or someone else, I think those kind of mistakes probably will cost us really, and consumer trust. Those are the two things that I would keep in mind in growing this opportunity.
John.
I think I was a little bit surprised today. I think if you take the amalgam of the commentary from the conference today, I would disagree with the sentiment that this is still early days. I think this is happening at the adoption is happening at a much faster level than I think the collective reference would make today. My observation point is always to try to follow the money. I would respectfully disagree with Jeremy a little bit that I would categorize that in large portions of this, it's moved away from just experimental and pilot. It is now into real budgets, and retailers in particular are starting to spend real money on this stuff. So I think that there's an acceleration pace that's going on, that the next 2 years is going to be much different than what you've seen over the course of the past.
Jeremy, you literally get the final word of the conference.
I need a
Actually,
drink.
I do, but Jeremy sort of does.
Oh, sorry, I don't know if you heard me, but I said I need a drink. Is my final. No, I think it's really exciting times again. And I think you actually corrected somebody earlier, or somebody corrected somebody earlier who asked for a prediction 5 years out, and you said that's way too long. Let's think 3 years, 2 years. And I often get people asking me like, what do you think is the future of mobile more generally? What's that going to look like? And my response to them is I have no idea what my phone's going to look like in 2 years. So I can't even predict. But I think that what also makes this really exciting is what's happening in wearable and how that's going to surface the benefits of mobility in a much more user-friendly way. And when we get there, all of this stuff that we're talking about just becomes all that much more magical.
Okay, join me in thanking the panelists.